Imagine doubling your money in just 90 days. Sounds incredible, right? Well, back in 1920, thousands of people thought they had hit the jackpot, only to realize they had been conned by one of the greatest scammers in history. This is the wild story of Charles Ponzi, the man who pulled off one of the most infamous financial frauds of all time. And trust me, this one has deception, greed, and a downfall so spectacular it still echoes a century later. So who was Charles Ponzi? Well, before he became a household name for fraud, he was just another immigrant chasing the American dream. Born in Italy in 1882, Ponzi came to the US in 1903 with a few dollars to his name. He worked odd jobs, got involved in some shady business ventures, and even did a little time in prison for forgery. But none of that stopped him from dreaming big. One day, Ponzi stumbled upon something that seemed like a gold mine, a loophole in international postage reply coupons. Think of it like modern-day arbitrage trading, where investors exploit price differences across markets. Except in Ponzi's case, the opportunity was far more fragile than it appeared. And this, my friends, is where things start to get interesting. Now let me break this down for you, alright? Back in the day, if you wanted to send a letter internationally, you could buy a postal reply coupon that the recipient could exchange for local postage. Due to currency fluctuations after World War I, these coupons were worth more in some countries than others. So Ponzi saw this as an opportunity. At first glance, it seemed like a surefire way to make money with little risk. But beneath the surface, something much bigger and much riskier was about to unfold. His big idea? Buy these cheap coupons overseas, redeem them for higher value in the US, and pocket the difference. In theory, it was a legit arbitrage strategy, but there was just one teeny tiny problem. There weren't nearly enough of these coupons in circulation to sustain what Ponzi was about to do next. He started promising investors a 50% return in 45 days or 100% in 90 days. And guess what? People lined up to throw money at him. And since Ponzi used money from new investors to pay earlier ones, it looked like the system was working. But let me show you exactly how this works with a quick diagram. Imagine a pyramid. At the top, you have Ponzi himself. Below him are the first round of investors, and below them, even more investors. The money isn't coming from real profits, it's just moving down from the newest investors to the older ones. Eventually, when there aren't enough new people putting in money, the whole thing crumbles. The hype spread like wildfire. Newspapers called him a financial genius, and in just a few months, he had raised millions. But as with all too good to be true schemes, the cracks started to show, slowly at first. The real turning point when a sharp-eyed journalist at the Boston Post decided to dig a little deeper. A simple question: where was the actual money coming from? Sent ripples of doubt through investors. Soon, skepticism turned into panic and the entire illusion came crashing down. Journalists and financial experts began asking questions like, how was Ponzi actually making these crazy profits? And when they crunched the numbers, well, they realized something alarming. To sustain his scheme, Ponzi would have needed hundreds of millions of these postal coupons, but they barely existed in the real world. As suspicions grew, one newspaper, the Boston Post, launched an investigation. That was the beginning of the end. Within days, investors panicked, demanding their money back. Banks froze his accounts, and Ponzi, well, he tried to keep the act up as long as he could, but the house of cards had already collapsed. In August 1920, Ponzi was arrested and charged with fraud. Turns out, he had swindled investors out of $20 million, which in today's money is over $300 million. He was sentenced to prison, deported back to Italy, well, and he lived the rest of his life in disgrace. But his legacy? Oh, it lived on, evolving into more sophisticated financial scams that still deceive people today. His name became synonymous with this type of scam, which is why today we call it a Ponzi scheme. Here's the crazy part: Ponzi schemes didn't die with Charles Ponzi. When his empire crumbled, Ponzi himself was in denial, insisting he could still turn things around. Even as he was arrested and faced a courtroom full of furious investors, he reportedly smirked and said, even if they never got anything for their money, it was cheap at that price. Without malice afterthought, I gave them the best show that was ever staged. His arrogance never faded. but his name became forever linked to one of the most infamous scams in history. The same scam has been pulled off again and again. Ever heard of Bernie Madoff? He ran the biggest Ponzi scheme in history, stealing $65 billion from investors before it all came crashing down in 2008. Or maybe the notorious Enron scandal or the OneCoin cryptocurrency fraud. So why do people keep falling for it? 1. Greed and FOMO. The promise of easy money is hard to resist. 2. Fake legitimacy. Scammers use fancy offices, legal documents, and endorsements to look legit. 3. Well, early investors are getting paid. When people see others making money, they assume it's real until the whole thing collapses. So what's the lesson here? If someone promises you guaranteed returns with little to no risk, run. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Have you ever come across a scam that seemed, well, too real to be fake? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, well, hit that like button, subscribe for more bits of savvy, and I'll see you in the next one.